Swagatam and welcome everyone. I am Neelam Jaiswal, lead coordinator of Hindu Women Network National Team. This event is being recorded, and if you do not want to be recorded, you have the opportunity to either mute your audio and stop your video. Now I will request Dr. Gunjan Agrawal to please show the Deep Prajwalan and Istuti done by Yash Desai ji and three generations of our family to welcome the divine Shakti, purity, goodness, good luck, and power to all. Please play that video. Sound is not coming. Gunjanji, sound is not coming. Please play it again. Yeah.
निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा शुभं करोति कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदा शत्रुबुद्धि विनाशाय दीपज्योति नमोस्तुते गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वर गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः.
Thank you, Yashi. Can you show the next? So March 8 is the International Women's Day. It's considered to be an important point in the movement of women's rights. It is the day when women are recognized for their achievement in their respective field. We salute each and every one of you. Next slide, please. Hindu Women's Network mantra is triple S, Seva, Shakti, and Sadhana, that you can see also here in the logo. Our goal is to form a vibrant network of Hindu women to promote communication and collaboration at local, national, and international level to serve the society they live in by sharing their skills, talents, and age-old wisdom. Next slide, please. Let's see this short movie on Hindu Women Network. Then you know more about the Hindu Women. Please play the movie.
Traditionally been the nucleus of the household, the sustainer of Hindu culture and values, the light which has kept the family together. Great women like Gargi, Pannadai, Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi, Jijabai have kept this glorious tradition alive. The Hindu Women's Network strives to achieve its mission with the three-pronged approach of Shakti, empowerment, sadhana through samskaras, and seva, service to society. Our vision is to form a dynamic and vibrant national network of Hindu women living in America to foster communication and collaboration locally and nationally in the service of the society by sharing their skills, talents, and age-old wisdom. The Hindu Women's Network was started with the objective to keep this flame alive, to re-educate the present society about where we come from, our traditions, our values, and aspire to reach those heights again. Hindu Women's Network was started in 2012 as an initiative of VHP of America. The first conference was held in Staten Island, New York on June 24, 2012. The primary objective for the conference was to highlight the various challenges faced by women and create an interactive network to guide them as a support group in their moments of crisis. To harness their collective power, women's conferences are being organized by the Hindu Women's Network Atlanta chapter annually since 2013. The organizers invited community leaders, inspirational speakers, and professionals to share their knowledge and expertise for realistic, actionable methods to practice and preserve the future generations' values and culture. The conference provided an interactive arena where participants voiced their opinions and were not just listeners but actively shared their own experiences in providing spontaneous solutions to the issues. This cohesive environment promoted a tremendous personal interaction between participants. A young woman might get her issues resolved from the wisdom and personal life lessons of a senior who has gone through the same phase of life. The Hindu Women's Network of Cincinnati started in 2014 to cultivate Hindu women's three great abilities: Shakti, Seva, and Sadhana. In the last 6 to 7 years, the network has organized more than 20 events on various relevant topics attended by women from diverse backgrounds and age groups, such as mother-daughter pair sharing their experience on handling challenges of living in a dual culture, or how to have healthy relationship with yourself to build confidence. Events also have a most admired fun-filled activity, and each session ends with healthy snacks prepared by the volunteer core team. Seva is an important part of this network, such as celebrating birthdays of the residents living in a senior center. Residents feel loved and cared by the kindness of volunteers visiting them. We also stepped up during the current pandemic by making and distributing masks to the hospitals, provided food to needy families. This network has been coordinating and managing the Support a Child fundraising events for the last 4 years as part of their Seva goal to support destitute children in Bharat. Audience attending these events have given encouraging feedback that has motivated the organizing teams. Women felt empowered to discuss and share their points of view on this excellent platform to celebrate the sisterhood together. The woman is the figure that unfolds the divine potential that is present in every person. This is apparent in the concept of Archanarishwar, the concept of complementarity, that Purush and Prakriti are not in conflict with each other, but complement each other, coming together to form a complete whole. It is the Nari Shakti that completes the family. That is the energy that propels things forward. The Hindu Women's Network seeks to inspire every woman to achieve this ideal, to strengthen her own family and society, to achieve harmony through emotional, spiritual, and financial well-being.
Next slide. So by now you have a better idea about what is Hindu Women Network is about. So let me give an update on the Hindu Women Network chapter. We started with the 3 chapter in Atlanta, Cincinnati, and Staten Island. Now we have 7 chapters, as you can see here, in Boston, Chicago, Orange County, and South Florida. And our goal is to moving forward to have more chapters this year and also coming years. So if you are interested in starting a chapter in your city, please contact us at hwnusa.org and we will help you out. Can you have a next slide, please? Let me talk about one project that we started last year that's called Durga Project. Durga Project is a dare against abuse. This project provides resources like name, phone number, and other contact information of various agencies that are available at the local, state, and federal level to the survivors of the domestic abuse so they can contact appropriate resources according to their needs. We have created a guidance document which provides resources to help our Durga, the domestic abuse survivor, to start their journey to rebuild the life for herself and her family. And I'm very proud to share with you, as of now, we have empowered three Durgas to stand up for their rights and lead a respectable life. Next slide, please. So now we will start with the today's event, Archanarishwar, balance of Shakti and Shiva, gender complementarity for future sustainability. Let me introduce the moderator of the today. Before that, I'm requesting all of you, if you have any question, please put that on the chat box and it will be answered after the panel discussion is over. Next slide, please. Mahaji is a global vice president and senior sales leader at the Cloudflare Incorporated. Mahaji leads and drives business transformation initiative in various capacity. She is also very active in Chinmaya Mission West and 49 centers in North America. Here you go, Mahaji.
Thank you, Neelam ji, for the introduction. So the much-awaited panel
Next
discussion.
slide, please. Can you move the next slide, Gunjan? Yes.
So we are on to the next part of it. It was really wonderful to hear Neelam ji talk about the work that the Hindu Women's Network is doing. And as a continuation of that great work, we're going to be having a wonderful discussion today. The topic that we have today, as we're celebrating the International Women's Day, is a theme that strikes a chord really close to our hearts. And that's a concept of Archanarishwar. For followers, I mean, before you started, you must have seen a lot of imagery that was up there that described what the concept of Archanarishwar meant. So followers of Sanatana Dharma, this image is not unusual. They see it in their homes, of seeing the divine form in both the male and the female's physical attributes, right? But for many others or young adults that have been raised outside Bharat, this form may seem strange and almost difficult to comprehend. But it's actually one of the most modern images that you can ever think of. This form represents the divine balance of the universe. Shiva represented in the male form and the Shakti represented in the female form. However, over time, this form has translated into some sort of a gender-specific stereotype that has governed society's expectations from the man and the woman of the human species. Now, let's take about, I'd say, 60 seconds, so I don't take time away from the panelists, to review the genesis of the symbol of unity and completeness that our ancients had put together. We know the Trinity in our scriptures represented by Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the sustainer, and Shiva, the dissolver. Or the kids call him recycler, right? But what is not widely discussed is that for each of them to perform their respective roles, their consorts are needed, and their consorts, right? So for Brahmaji to create, he needs a knowledge of creation, and that resides in Mother Saraswati. She represents knowledge. Vishnu, the sustainer, needs the means or sustenance to sustain the universe, right? And he is represented by Goddess Lakshmi, and that is represented by Goddess Lakshmi. And Shiva, the dissolver or this recycler, needs energy. I mean, we know that in science, right? You need energy to actually recycle, and that Shakti that helps dissolve and transform the universe is Mother Parvati, right? So every one of this form requires the other form to be a complete whole and to be able to perform the activities. Now, we're going to leave this as sort of the foundation for the discussion today. We won't discuss the history of this understanding because time will not allow it. Maybe that's for another time. Neelam ji, we can have another conversation. However, we have among our midst this evening some brilliant women who who represent this Shakti or creation's driving force that has helped transform and make this world a better place. They will talk to us a little bit about these stereotypes and also not dwell too long upon it, but also look at how, if they even have a place in our society, and how they view it and what lessons can be learned from their own individual journey. So first, let us go to our keynote speaker, Dr. Sai Patilji. She's joining us today to speak a little bit about her own personal experience. Now, Dr. Sai Patilji is a director and project management at Viatris Pharma. She's completed her master's MS in medical microbiology from Bharat and a PhD from New York Medical College and an executive MBA from the University of Pittsburgh. Now, she's previously worked as an R&D manager at Siemens Healthcare Diagnostics and also director of project management, Mylan Pharmaceuticals. She's been with Rashtra Sevika Samiti from her early childhood and has held various responsibilities, including National Coordinator for Women's Activities and the Northeast Zone Coordinator for HSS USA. Now, currently, she's responsible she's responsibility is that of a National Sahakari Vahika or Joint Executive Director at the Hindu Swayamsevak Sangh in the US. Welcome, Saiji. Now, thank you for joining us. This evening's discussion, as we discussed over this week and yesterday as well, is such an interesting topic. And I'm really eager, and so is the audience, to hear about your thoughts on the concept of Archanarishwar. What is your understanding? What can we learn from it? And how can we apply it to various levels of society, whether it's work, family, social? And how can this concept help us imagine this whole or a complete unbroken family and society for the future sustainability?
Absolutely. Thank you, Margie. Thank you for that introduction. And thank you for choosing such an appropriate topic. I think just the choice of topic shows where we have come, how far we have come. So when I start thinking about the Archanarishwar concept, I would like to tell you what I have learned, the story behind the symbolism. And I thought that was quite interesting. So as we know, Lord Shiva is the Adi Yogi. Adi Yogi is the first guru, and Parvati requested him to be her guru to learn from him. With Parvati, there were 7 rishis, the Sapta rishis, who joined Lord Shiva to learn from him. And over the course of period, they became really strong devotees of Shiva. One of them in particular, Rishi Bhrigu, sage Bhrigu, became even a very hardcore follower, and he became almost obsessed with the devotion to Lord Shiva. So much so that if Shiva and Parvati are sitting, he would completely ignore Ma Parvati and go around circumventing Lord Shiva, do his pradakshina to offer his, offer his gratitude. Lord Shiva was quite amused by this, and he was wondering how far this obsession is going to go. So he requested Ma Parvati to sit on his lap, just to see how Rishi Bhrigu is going to react. And when Rishi Bhrigu saw that form of Shiva, he shrunk himself to a small size and went around Lord Shiva's leg, making sure he's only circumventing Lord Shiva and not Parvati. And I think Lord Shiva realized that this is becoming a little too much, and that obsession needs to be, the attention to be drawn to what the reality is, what the real meaning of these forms are. And he merged Parvati into him, forming what we call today Archanarishwar. The idea behind that symbolism, as you mentioned before, is to make sure that we understand that the whole existence of this universe is a combination of Shiva and Shakti, is the combination of Prakriti and Purusha. And without that combination, we cannot exist. So you can't practically go on obsessing about one form, skewing your vision about the world in general. And the moment you do that, you are in trouble, obviously. And we know why. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. Every harmonious existence needs the balance. But then if we knew so much, if we had so much of symbolism and knowledge which our Sanatan Dharma had provided, why we have for thousands of years, why we have come to a situation where we actually have to celebrate International Women's Day if we understood the balance so well. Unfortunately, what happened over the period of time is we started looking at our life more from the economic standpoint. And obviously, many years ago, the economy was driven by a muscle power. Obviously, men dominated. When we start giving importance to economic sustenance, we do obviously deviate from dharma. And that's quite evident where we started subjugating the feminine Shakti or the females in general, because they would so-called not contribute to the economic economic power. Through that, this subjugation, these atrocities, not giving the equality in general was disturbed. And with that came the need for someone or few people or some group of people stand up and say that, hey, this is not right. And that's where we came up with this International Women's Day. But as we are celebrating this, as technology has advanced, as we see that women have becoming equal partners in this economic engine, we ought to remember that, is that the only thing which needs to drive us? Are we trying to skew now on the other side? We were getting subjugated. Are we going to another extreme now? Of course, the equality is important. Of course, the balance is important. And that's exactly what we need to remember looking at Archanarishwar, that how do we strike that balance? Now, there are multiple ways to strike that balance. We may think that, personally, if you think about it spiritually as a Hindu, all of us are supposed to strike that balance internally. All of us carry that feminine and masculine Shakti in us, the power in us. And the idea of any perfect human life is to strike the balance, give them the best potential, and have the perfect life. Now, you definitely need a lot of sadhana, a lot of preparation to be able to do that. And that is precisely why we go through so many births, because the ultimate goal is to achieve that balance. Now, when we say we go through these multiple births, we know that the body is changing. Body is Nashwar, but the Atma is the eternal force, and Atma has no gender. And I think that's a very, very important thing to remember, because we try and get extremely focused on our external appearance and straitjacket ourselves, making sure that if I am born in a female body, these are the things I'm supposed to do. If I'm born in a male body, these are the things I'm supposed to do, forgetting that we both have both kinds of energies, and making sure that those energies are expressed when they're needed, and strike the balance. And our history has shown us that multiple times. It's not that just, in today's day and age that women can express their masculine power. In fact, you just in your previous presentation actually mentioned 4 very, very important women of our history. If you think about it, Gargi actually represents knowledge. She was the greatest contributors, one of the Rishikas contributing to the knowledge. The other one we talked about is Jhansi Ki Rani. When she realized that the masculine power is required at that time to save her kingdom, she picked up the sword, had her kid on her back, and jumped into the battlefield without thinking twice. Then we talked about Pannadhai. Pannadhai is the epitome of sacrifice, who gave up her own child to make sure that the next heir of the kingdom is saved. And Jizabai, of course, we know, the greatest mother, or the symbol of greatest motherhood, who chose to be a single woman, chose to give up all her luxuries, chose not to be with her husband, so that she can raise a very, very strong Hindu king who will make sure that the atrocities done to the kingdom, done to the people, are taken care, and people can be safe. I think looking at these great women who actually invoked their both their energies equally so that they could shape the world, so that they could shape their society around them, so that they could shape their next generation. We have so much to learn from our own history, our own culture, and our own identity. We should be very proud to know that. And that is why I think all we need to realize going forward is not trying to skew on one way or the other, not trying to say that, hey, masculine power is the way to go, or the feminine Shakti is the only way to survive, but to strike the balance of both the Shaktis by making sure we may not be able to do that in our one lifetime within ourselves, but can we make sure that it happens around us? For example, if I cannot strike the balance in my own household, both the partners strike that balance. If I don't see the balance around me in my professional world, I make sure that I invoke the Shakti required there. And if there is no balance in my society, I make sure that that balance is done or struck by contributing to the society very positively. I think if we can keep that in mind, the Archanarishwar will become much more significant for all of us.
That's fantastic. It gave me goosebumps a couple of times throughout it was very impassioned. We went back in a little bit in history or to our scriptures. You talked a lot about the concept of knowing that Atma does not have any male or female energies, but it's not well known. It's not, the concept is still not understood. So it's the body that represents most of the things that we end up doing, or our belief systems based on how we are viewed. I also especially liked what you talked about, the female body, like the female energy being invoked by a male or vice versa, to play it where a male can play the role of a nurturer, and where Jhansi Kirani can play the role of a hunter, or in this case a warrior, right? So that's really well laid out. You really set the stage for the conversation that's going to happen. For the rest of them. So hang in there. We're going to come back to you as well. Our next panelist is Rakhi Strategy. Rakhi is an attorney by profession, holds an MBA from Rice University. She's currently the founder and president of Excel Test Prep Incorporated. Rakhi grew up in Houston, Texas, and currently lives in the San Francisco Bay Area with a husband and 4 children. She's been actively involved in community service activities for most of her life, and the list is very long. She currently serves as the Director of Public Relations for Seva International USA, and she's legal director for Hindu Pact. She's also an active member of her local Interfaith Council. She's president of the PTA at her kids' school, and she currently serves on the board of directors for the State Bar of Texas. And after all of this, she's also found a little bit of time from her busy schedule at home and externally as well to spend some time with us. So welcome, Rakhi. So question for you. You heard Saiji talk a little bit about sort of the foundation, like what is the basis of the concept of Archanarishwar, the imagery that we see and why that exists, right? The ancients put it there for us almost as a guidepost for how we need to lead our lives and create internal and external balance. Now, but we are observing inequity around us, right? I'm saying inequity, not inequality, right? Inequity that we observe around us. Now, what do you believe are the critical changes we need to make to overcome this inequity that we observe around us?
Thank you, Mahanti. So, I think the most critical change required really, it starts with this idea that we're only as strong as our weakest link, whether it's in our family or society or in the world. For example, take what's happened in the last 2 years, right? The COVID pandemic, I think, has really taught us a lot. It's been front and center in our lives for the past 2 years. And this pandemic, especially once the vaccines were released, really showed the problem with inequity or inequality in general. I mean, no one was safe until everyone was safe. And yet, there was very little move towards correcting the inequality that was present in the system. The COVID-19 pandemic clearly challenged the global healthcare systems, but it tested our most basic level of and common humanity within each of us, right, within the global context as well. And the same phenomena we've seen at every level of existence, inequity at any level or in any situation causes a burden on the overall system. The way to solve inequities at a global level is through policies and institutions. The way to solve the inequities at a micro level is really through attitude and family. The change in attitude must happen in a few ways, but I believe the most critical is our own internal reactions. In fact, I have, like as you mentioned, I have 4 kids. I have 3 girls and a boy, all between the ages of 13 and 9. And I think that they've been my greatest teacher on the lessons in life that are necessary. I mean, everything is chaotic about our lives. We can go from 100 to 0 and back to 100 in a matter of seconds. Everyone will be happy and laughing and everyone's having a good time. One comment is made, one wrong gesture, one innocent movement, and everything goes downhill. One action spurs a series of negative reactions that cause a very downward spiral pretty quickly. And as a parent, I believe you learn which actions by which child will cause meltdowns in the entire system. And this way, hopefully, kind of learn to anticipate and hopefully prevent problems as they escalate. Our kids and their basic interactions with each other really show you the power of reactions in creating disharmony in the system. So a few years ago, we tried this experiment where in every room, in every hallway, on every mirror in our house, we put a sign. And I believe that this sign has made a lot of difference in kind of keeping the calm in our house. The sign simply says that I will control my reactions to keep myself and everyone around me happy. I will control my reactions to keep myself and everyone around me happy. And it really forced this understanding that bad actions or bad reactions lead to bad consequences. Understanding that pattern in how things work, getting them to recognize the effect that their one action has on others around them and their behavior and the common outcomes was really key to helping control it. And the controlling of reactions in our lives, in our society, and even on a global level, I believe is probably the most important factor in ensuring future sustainability.
That's great, thank you. I especially love the story of the concept of cause and effect, action and reaction, where you're telling your children at a very young age that everything that they do has a reaction at the tail end of it. It may not be apparent right now, but it has a tail end of it. And then you also really spoke about how an individual and then how as a society we can approach this concept of strength, right? How do we stay strong with our belief system? By individual attitude, right? The actions that cause a meltdown, and then also institutional, which is policies that we come together and then we institute so that we have a better outcome. Now, I do want to ask a follow-up question on that, which is, do you believe that unity and equity can be built by a combination of these opposites that we see, which we've, apparent sets of opposites? Can we still build unity and equity?
Yeah, in fact, I think it's through the combination of opposites that we create unity and equity, right? Life is relative. I mean, we appreciate daytime because we've experienced night and vice versa. Activity has to be balanced with rest. Work has to be balanced with play, right? Otherwise, our system suffers in general. The lack of balance in our individual lives is what creates disharmony for ourselves and those around us. The famous psychologist Carl Jung had once said that wholeness is achieved by integrating the contraries, not by cutting off contrary parts. And all of us have an interpersonal part of the opposite sex, as was mentioned earlier. That he says that the duality of personalities is really a useful technique of understanding and working with our internal psyche. And often we tend to neglect our subconscious part that is contrary to our external side. And to avoid conflict and bring peace within, it's really important to recognize this hidden part and accept it, right? And understand that it's part of us. And we have these two parts in harmony, our interactions with everyone around us tends to be more positive. Now, a woman who wishes to integrate her masculine part. She can strive to be more focused and following her goals and doing everything that's required to achieve them. As we've seen, as Saiji mentioned, all the great women in our own history who have done exactly that without sacrificing their feminine side. And a man who wishes to integrate his feminine part should really open up more with others, trust that emotional side more, be more gentle with others without sacrificing the masculinity. Sometimes, I like I said, I learn more from my kids than I have in any other situation in my life. And so I'll just give you an example from my own kids, how we see this principle in play. They're basically an extension of us. And so, I'll tell you, when my first child was born, Sia, it's like this, it's a very, it's everything in your life is for this child. It's everything you want to do is to keep her happy. You want to protect her from all sadness or whatever. And so, this outflow of love. And the idea that you would do anything for your child, whether you yourself suffer or not, is not the issue. It's that your child should never suffer or be sad. And so, especially with this first child, it's easy to get carried away with just letting the small mistakes go, simply loving this child unconditionally until the second one comes. Right? And the second one comes at that time, you understand how her actions are affecting him, and how, as I mentioned earlier, this cycle of deterioration, and the idea that you can't let extreme behavior or destructive behavior continue. It has to be addressed. So, and by not calling out bad or destructive behavior, we really create destruction or disharmony in many other ways. Basically, what you learn is that love without discipline is not parenting, and parenting without love is also not, discipline without love is not parenting, love without discipline is also not parenting. And both of these situations cause potential disharmony in our lives. It causes disharmony in the present and future lives of our children and in the lives around us, right? Love and discipline have to go hand in hand. And the same principle is actually true at every level. All problems in ourselves or in our companies, in our societies, or at a global level, our actions should be balanced with a combination of rules and structure on one hand and compassion and understanding on the other. The balance in our actions and attitudes is what naturally leads to harmony and growth for all.
You struck such a chord with that. Is like, when we talk about balance of Shiva and Shakti, or the male form and the female form, we think about a spouse, like, a male and female being married to each other. But this sort of harmony can exist, like you said, in two children, the girl child and the boy child, also creating that balance within a household. It's really an extension of the concept of Shakti and Shiva, the energies that are at play. Yes, I can see, I can definitely understand what you're talking about. Not that it happened in my own, but I've seen how that can play well with each other. And I also really liked what you said about integrating the contraries, not cutting it off. Right, as you were quoting, it's just such an interesting part of it, is that sometimes, like a male who's a nurturer, who's naturally a nurturer, sometimes continues to ignore it because they don't want to accept that aspect of it, and vice versa as well. And they carry the concept of guilt with them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we proceed. But thank you so much for your thoughts on this. Now we want to go to our next panelist. Our next panelist is Dr. Anupma Prakash. Anupma Prakash is a provost and executive vice chancellor at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And yes, she is joining us from Alaska. She has a PhD in earth sciences from the Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, and a master's degree from Lucknow University in India in geology. She's conducted a postdoctoral research at ITC in Netherlands. She's well-traveled, as you can see. She's a professor of geophysics and is internationally recognized for her research on underground coal mine fires. She's also a passionate educator and a researcher at the Department of Geosciences and the Geophysical Institute. Now, she's, as you can see, Anupmaji is not only well-traveled and well-learned, but she's also here with us today to share some of her thoughts on the concept of Archanarishwar. But we're going to shift a little bit. Now, we talked about the history, the concept, the design, and why that was created by the ancients. We talked a little bit about how does that help us create unity and equity. we're going to shift a little bit into some of our more practical ways in which how we see it in our work life, right? How can the concept of Archanarishwar be applied to leadership and to make one a better leader? Anupmaji, welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. What a great question. Love to share my thoughts with you all about it. As we get into these leadership positions and keep going into higher leadership positions, we keep a set of tools in our pockets to lead, you know. One of the tools that I find very powerful is just symbolism. It's got great power. You know, if you think about symbolism in general, you know, you watch a cricket match, you paint your colors with the national flag colors. You know, in higher academia where I work, we take great pride in symbolism. You know, when students graduate, we dress up with our regalia. We've got celebrations going on. We wear our gowns and caps and tassels, and just, you know, you have Holi, you paint your walls all different colors. You dress up like that. The power of that symbolism, and we've got a lot of symbolism in Hinduism. The power of symbolism is it gets people excited. It gets people together. It helps you lead. You start looking at common values, common purposes that those symbolisms depict. Archanarishwar is a very, very powerful symbolic form. I've had that picture in my mind ever since I was young. I don't think I understood everything about that. And there's so much depth to that. But what it does is it puts this visual image, which is a very powerful visual image in your mind, of opposites. And even though the form shows that of a half man, half woman, the symbolic representation of that form is, and the meaning of that is much wider. You know, it's not just a man or a woman that it's depicting. It's the Shiv, the Shakti. It's the masculine parts, the feminine part that we just heard about, but it goes beyond. It could be vices, virtues, you know, it could be spiritualism and materialism. It could be structure and anarchy. So again, what Archanarishwar represents in my mind is two extreme parts of a spectrum. And so we have to recognize that there are two ends of the spectrum, opposite ends of the spectrum, and there's everything in between. So life's not like this black and white, but it's this whole gray zone that we navigate in. And as leaders, we've got to recognize that. We've got to recognize in every situation, as a leader, when you step in, you get to conflict management. You'll have that every day in your life. You bring that power in over here in your leadership. And then you've got to recognize that there is no one truth. It's again, the mixture of these opposites, that there's all kind of perspectives, and you bring that together as you lead. So you look at that, you recognize both ends of the spectrum, and you look at a situation, whatever comes your way every day of your life in its complete form, in its totality. And that's really important to remember, that there is no one extreme perspective always. There's always diversity in that perspectives. Look at it from all ends and look at a situation in totality as you lead and bring people together.
Awesome. You know, we talk a lot about, there's a lot of leadership and management programs and courses that exist out there that talk about how to be a strong leader. And, you know, of late, there's a lot of conversations around emotional intelligence or emotional quotient compared to an IQ, and then leading with empathy, compassionate leadership. There's like categories of leadership programs that focus specifically on the feminine attributes that we talk about, right? What you just referred to, and how that is an integral part of being a leader, right? And that's just such a visual understanding of how we can be a better leader by integrating the masculine as well as the feminine virtues that exist in an individual. It's really it's a wonderful way to look at leadership and what it can offer to us. Now, what changes do you think are needed to help the men and women work together as one unit of Shiva and Shakti as a leader? You alluded to it a little bit, but can you elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Maha. I do think that this concept of Archanarishwar that we just talked about, where we're talking about this unity in duality, I think what I want to go is just a level deeper into the fundamental principles behind it. It's what is really important is recognizing and acknowledging both the Shiva and the Shakti, and the blending of that individualities and the strengths that each part brings to the table. I know that as I was getting into this leadership position, I like to go into leadership positions with planning, right? So I took these trainings. I went to a coach. I took training in management and in leadership. And that was an interesting experience. I mean, there were so many powerful things I took back, but there were so many things that I also heard over there that did not gel well with my own thinking. So as I was taking this training, I was told about how to be a strong leader and how you've got to portray yourself as the strong person. You don't like something, you still smile. And I said, what if it comes across as fake? And they said, well, you fake it till you make it. And I'm like, and there was like, lead like a man, because you've got to show that strength. You don't have to, give in if somebody's pushing. And at some point I was listening and things just weren't registering right. And it was just like, you've got to portray this. It was almost as if that if you show that you're vulnerable, you'll not be taken seriously as a leader. I mean, I've taken a lot of things from that leadership training, but not that. I mean, I share my vulnerabilities with my community, with my stakeholders in writings that I do. Like, I share that because I think it's a part of being who you are. And I feel like your vulnerability is your strength. It's my strength. So I do not think that, I think being authentic is far more important than some stereotype thinking about what a leader should be like. I think there is a lot of power that each of us have. We have a lot of Shakti in us. And recognizing that strength and leading with that strength is important. But then also recognizing and acknowledging the strength of someone who's different from us is really important. So I think just as you lead and as you move along, be authentic, cherish your individuality, but also recognize and acknowledge the importance of that diversity in the team. So that's one of my key messages as you go, and that's what Archanarishwar brings for me.
1 second while I am having a little bit of a technical issue here with my screen. Let me sort this one out. All right, great. All sorted. With technology, you can never be sure. No, thank you so much, Anupmaji. Well, I am unmuted, yes. Thank you very much, Anupmaji. You hit the nail on the head in terms of how you approach this concept of leadership, and then how you be yourself, how you're an authentic leader by portraying everything that you believe in. Right? Your belief system is really key and critical to it. And if it is the feminine side, then that is it. If it's the masculine side, then that's it. Or a combination of the two, depending on the situation. So it's just an amazing way in which to look at leadership and extending the concept of the Archanarishwar into leadership. We're going to hang in there. We're going to come back with questions and another round. But I want to move to our next panelist. Our next panelist is Dr. Tara Sagar. Dr. Taraji is a board-certified internal medicine physician and a regional medical director with MedStar Health, a large East Coast-based 10-hospital system. She's completed her bachelor's BS at Miami University, a master's sciences at Wright State University, MD at Saba University School of Medicine, internal medical residency at the West Suburban Medical Center in Chicago. Dr. Tara is a leader for outpatient medical operations, overseeing over 150 plus physicians across the organization. Now, she's also a task force leader for COVID-19 operations, including implementation and execution of the COVID-19 mass vaccinations, testing, and monoclonal antibody treatment for the Washington, Maryland, and Virginia region. That's an amazing set of, her credentials are fantastic. And more importantly, thank you so much for being one of those warriors that were out there in the front line over the last 2 years and continuing to do so during the pandemic. Now, while she is doing all of this, again, just like the other panelists, she's also taken the time to share some of her thoughts on how can two opposite dynamic energies, like the masculine energy is also dynamic and the feminine energy is also dynamic in its own way. So how can these two almost seemingly opposite energies in the universe come together and form a well-balanced society? You get to see a lot of patients, you get to see a lot of people in the course of your work. But how do you see this coming together?
Yeah, it's such an interesting conversation. And what I did was I took a very literal approach to this idea and really looked at the traditional roles of men and women as they've just been assigned historically. So as we think about men, we think very external support that they provide, the outside of the home, perhaps the physical structure of the house, financial stability. And as we think about women, we often think about the internal structure. So the nurturing role, providing nourishment for the family, support, but not necessarily working, not necessarily the driver of the success of the whole household. And as I thought about it and I really reflected on it, I thought, well, that it just doesn't really speak to me. And as I really delved into it, it's because I actually wasn't raised this way. And it's quite remarkable to think that I was not raised that way, because I know my parents were, and I know my parents' parents were. And it's historically been through generations that these are the roles that individuals played. And I was in fact raised very differently. Yes, help in the kitchen. Yes, help with the laundry. As the oldest of three, care for your siblings, even if you don't want to. But also work with the landscaping, make sure that you're raking the leaves and shoveling the snow, working on cars, changing the oil, and I can definitely change a tire better than the best of them. So I was exposed to anything and everything, whether it was sports, arts, education, sciences, it didn't matter. My exposure was there. So on the surface, it appears that, exposure and, understanding everyone's duties, that's the key to success here, but it's actually so much deeper than that. It's an understanding that there's actually no limitations. We're actually not limited. When you feel like your world is limitless, you're whole and self-sufficient. That is the bottom line, and that is the key to this. So as I look at myself personally, I seek challenges. I don't shy away from obstacles. I keep going at them head first, even if I'm not successful. I selected a spouse who's a true partner to me. He doesn't complete me because I'm complete on my own. And I don't complete him because he too is complete on his own. And we challenge each other and we work side by side with each other every day. Professionally, what that's meant is my career has been my own choice. It's never been something that's been decided for me. But excelling at my career is something that was very much a foundation of how I was raised. Don't be good, don't be great, be exceptional at what you do and pour yourself into it. And so I chose a career where I can innovate, where I can be myself, where I can grow, where I can learn, where I can expand. So as I think about my experiences as a whole, and I think, if we can teach the generation behind us and the generation behind them and show that they're not limited to race or ethnicity or gender or anything that they may feel defines them as somebody different from anyone else, and we show them what that they're capable of, that's actually how you embrace the two energies and it becomes one spirit. That's how everything connects. If we're not seeking something that we're lacking in someone else or in something else, if we're not looking for that, then we realize we're whole, and that's where we get the well-balanced society.
That's so fantastic what you said, and I almost expected you to say, here's my spouse, and my spouse is, I thought you were going to say, my spouse supports me and he's supportive, but then he's like, I did not expect you to say, my spouse is not here to complete me, but almost to complement. That's very unusual. I'm going to make a note of that and maybe make a little banner for myself and put it out there, because we're always looking for completion elsewhere. I know it's a deeply, deeply Vedantic topic as well, but we could look for completion elsewhere. But both the energies that you said, you can go and change your tire with the best of them, or you can still be a nurturer to your children with the best of them, and that both of those energies stay within, and you're creating harmony within. And only when you're harmonious within, then you can create harmony externally as well. It's such a fantastic way in which to look at the universe, and it's clearly why you've been so successful in such a challenging environment, especially over the last 2 years, that you've still been able to go through that. Which brings me to the question is, what challenges have you experienced while performing these household duties and have the responsibility of the family while advancing your professional career? Clearly, you're very accomplished in both areas. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a little bit of background on me. Personally, I'm married and my husband is also a physician. We have 2 young boys, 12 and 7. And so that just means that everything's broken in our house all the time, with 2 little boys running around. But as I think about my career, I really divide it into pre-COVID and current. COVID was a big divider in my life, as it's been for so many. And so it really had an impact on me and my family. So when I think about pre-COVID, I really think about the word mom guilt. That word really spoke to me, and we throw it around all the time in our circles. And what it just means is it's a feeling of failure to your family in order to advance yourself somehow. And usually it's associated with career, but it doesn't have to be. And so I'd find myself saying things like, oh, Sean, I'm so sorry I missed your soccer game, or, David, I couldn't pick you up today because my meeting ran long. And I focused on my absence as something that was negatively impacting them. Well, COVID changed everything. When the whole world shut down and everyone retracted into their homes, the kids now became home 24/7. So they weren't even outside the house even 8 hours a day. So now 24/7, everybody came inside. My responsibility skyrocketed. And so I had to be out of the home twice as much as I ever was, sometimes working, 100 hours a week, just to make sure things were in place. The emotional impact of that was quite significant. The risk of infection, bringing it home, we couldn't ask for help. There was certainly a plethora of people who wanted to help us, family and friends, but the risk of infection was just too high to be able to bring anyone else into our home. And then there was the guilt of just not showing up for my partner or my family each day. It became really overwhelming. But with all of that, I would say negative sitting in the background, if you ask any physician leader, what they will tell you is that the pandemic has been the greatest fight of our lifetime, hands down. The duty to care for our community in chaos and take care of everyone around us in a time of uncertainty has been an extraordinary gift that we have been given. So I leaned in. I discovered that ultimately the life I was looking for was not work-life balance. It's actually one life. So I just pulled my family into my life because I certainly couldn't pull out what I was doing every day. So my children knew every single thing, whether it was a new testing location or a vaccine clinic or a new treatment center that we were setting up. They know way more about COVID than they probably should. But my hope is that through the challenge of all of this, I have and continue to lead by example. Hard work is its own reward. We have a duty to our community, and it is our responsibility to take care of others in our community. That is what I hope that is a big takeaway for them. So as we pull together as a team, this is how I see my one life. As my career hopefully continues to advance, I want to continue making my family a part of it. And hopefully it's building resiliency. It's building understanding and balance in their own lives as they get older.
That's so wonderfully put, because you talked about mom guilt and this concept of the monkey on your back, right? I mentor a lot of young men and women at work and externally as well. And one of the things they always ask me is like, am I making a choice if I'm not pursuing my career? How do we be like that? And am I failing my family as a result? And I always say, like, don't carry the monkey on your back, and don't let anyone put that monkey on your back, because it's just not. You will fail yourself. And like you said, you said it was the greatest fight of your lifetime. You could have walked away from it, or you could have stayed in there and said, this is my goal and purpose and vision in life, and that's what I want to do as a nurturer, as a caregiver now, for not just your family, but also of a very big family that includes your community. What a great way of putting that together. And I really like what you said about, instead of suffering in silence and then, playing the mom and the doctor and the medical practitioner at times when we need it, and then, carry the guilt of not being there for your family, you brought your family in and taught them all about what is going on in the universe. So bringing them in and making them part of your life, rather than you trying to balance all of these in place. That's also a great way in creating the balance. And that is also, again, integrating the two parts of your personality into one. So what a great way of addressing some of these challenges and converting these into opportunities for you to really broaden the thought process for your family and your near and dear ones. Thank you so much for that perspective. Now we're going to go a quick round and ask all of the panelists, what advice would they give to the next generation on the significance of this complementary roles in the family as well as at work for men and women based on the concept of Archanarishwar? So we'll start back in a reverse order. This time I'll start with Dr. Tara. So do you want to tell us a little bit about, like, what advice would you give to the next generation?
Yeah, I think my advice is that the world really is limitless, and any boundaries that exist, oftentimes those are in our heads. They aren't true boundaries. So in order to overcome those, you really need to look inward. Look at your own individual strengths and weaknesses. Both are equally important. Identify those weaknesses and try to figure out how to turn them into opportunities. Because ultimately we are all students forever. And so we will learn and learn and learn. Take this as a growth moment. So that's great. Now you've identified your strengths and your weaknesses. Great, now what? Do things outside of your comfort zone. Others will not invite you into different opportunities. You have to find them and you have to work outside your comfort zone. And my recommendation would be start with something tangible. Maybe there was a class you wanted to take or a social activity that you wanted to participate in, or perhaps you have a health goal that you have in mind. When you work outside your comfort zone and you attain goals that you never thought you would, no matter how small or how big, you'll realize that there are actually no boundaries out there. You will stumble, expect it. And as Rocky said, where there is no light without darkness, there is also no success without failure. So when you fail, when you stumble, it's how you get up, rise to the next challenge. That's what matters.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, women don't apply for certain jobs outside because they are not comfortable with taking on something that they haven't done before, right? It's one of the biggest excuses I hear about not having enough women take on roles within organizations and growing up in their ranks, that they have to satisfy 80% of the requirements before they would put their hands up and say, I want to do this. On the other hand, some of the men would be like, if they're 40 to 50% fit, they'll go like, yeah, I can do this. Right. So I think what you just suggested is like, identify those, turn them into opportunities for you to grow, get outside your comfort zone. That's a wonderful way in which to look at the advice for the next generation. We'll go over to Anupmaji next. Anupmaji, what advice would you give?
Yeah, thank you, Maha. I just wanted to say that so many times, we get stuck and we don't achieve our potential because there's something that is stopping us. And it may be a trauma from childhood. It may be a statement somebody said. It may be a comment a teacher made in a classroom when you were in 3rd grade saying, you can't do this. And it sticks with us, it stays with us. And we have to unlearn and let it go. And so I think from this discussion today and from this concept of Shiva and Shakti, just remember, I want to let the young women know all women, everyone know around that you have a lot of Shakti, you have a lot of power, you have a lot of strength that you need to just recognize that you have it inside you. And you play a very important part, and let no one tell you that you are any less. You are powerful. You are more powerful than you know. You have more strength than you know. You just have to recognize it, and you play an important role, and you're an equal half, no less.
Yes, that's you know, if we're not, I'm inspired by it, as well as I'm sure the others are inspired by this concept of unlearn some of these things that we have learned. It follows on to what Tara said about getting outside of the comfort zone. Start with something tangible. Don't let these things be a limitation. And the same thing is unlearn some of the things that have been ingrained in us from when we were children, and get out, you know, and go and let your potential shine through. Raki, what would you say some things that you'd want to have the next generation of men and women take away based on the concept of Archanarishwar?
Thank you, Mahaji. So, I think my advice would be, similar to what's been said, that be yourself, embrace the good and bad within yourself and within your families to really understand and grow. As Mahaji, as you mentioned in the beginning, that if we look at our own gods, right? I mean, Brahma couldn't create the universe without the help of Goddess Saraswati. Vishnu wasn't able to sustain or preserve it without the help from Goddess Lakshmi. And Lord Shiva couldn't destroy or do his functions without the Shakti that Goddess Parvati provides. And so, all of us live our lives, we need the help of others, and we shouldn't be afraid to kind of understand it. So I actually that similarly, like in our own lives, I think that the most important thing is really recognizing our own tendencies towards certain paths and allowing either you yourself do it, or you allow others that you trust fully to ground you in what's right and wrong, right? In my own life, I know I have a tendency to get very emotional or react very quickly when something might happen or might hear something. And, I have my father, my older brother, my husband, my sister-in-law, like people I trust fully to help me evaluate the situation and decide what's right and wrong, how I should be acting or I should not be acting. And a lot of times I don't like the advice because they're stopping me from reacting the way I want to react. But in many ways, they help you when you have someone that you fully trust. They help you avoid the bad consequences that can really hurt your life, right, and hurt those around you. So this ability to ground ourselves or follow the advice of those we really trust is how we create harmony in ourselves and in our society. Understanding our own tendencies and allowing someone to steady us is how we can effectively balance the good and bad within ourselves and our society to ensure that happiness prevails for everyone.
That is it, right? That's at the end of the day, that's what we want, is peace and harmony and happiness that results from harmony, a harmonious existence, not to create an imbalance one way or the other. Like Saiji was talking about, is like, let's not go one extreme or the other, like create harmony and balance, because that's what Archanarishwar represents. But do that by recognizing what is your tendency, and what you said is so powerful, just trusting others to ground you. Whether it's an emotional response or whether it is an aggressive response, they all have a place and time to be that. Is that even a bad thing, right? Maybe a good thing for you to have a response and be comfortable with it. Like Anupmaji was talking about, is that even a bad thing? That's my authentic leadership style, and that's what I want to be. And I'm not going to change that because someone requires me to. Which brings me to our keynote speaker, Saiji. What would you say? You really set the stage so wonderfully well, that everybody followed through on, which is like the ancients set this thing up, and they set this thing up because they realized that we would need the symbol to do something with, right? Not just to look at it and say, oh yeah, it's a great symbol, but to actually take a lesson from it. What would you say would be something that we should leave back to the next generation, the significance of these complementary roles?
Absolutely. I think one thing I would definitely want all of us, and especially our next generation, to remember is what a wonderful heritage we have, and what we have received as a gift from our ancestors. Let's not forget that. Let's remind ourselves continuously, what do we take from it, and how do we apply it in today's life, because it is applicable. Fortunately, it is applicable, and not for just for us, not just for Hindus, it is universally applicable. It is talking about the entire, these are universal rules practically for the sustainable world. So if we want to take anything from our great sages and seers, who were the olden days researchers practically, who gave us all their research and on a plate for us, and we don't have to do really much but to follow, we can be first be proud of having that heritage, and use it not just in our own personal life to strike that balance, not in our own personal life to make our life beautiful. Of course, we all do that and we all strive to do that. But how do I make sure that we use those values to make my surroundings a better place? Make my next generation, I want to leave a better world for coming generations. How do I do that? How do I contribute? And especially for us who are born as women in this life, we have some potential we need to reach to. We have some experiences we need to go through, and with that, I think we have extra responsibility to kind of the way we create the harmony and balance in our own family, in our own personal life, extend that harmony to the surrounding world. We have that extra responsibility. So let's not just focus on what is it for me, how do I fix my life, how do I take care of me, my family, my kids, but let's expand it to how do I contribute to my society, how do I make this world a better place, not just for me, not just for my family, but for coming generations together. And we all have our small role to play. And I think we all ought to recognize that role and play that role as we move on in life.
It's so fantastic. I was just reflecting on what you were saying, and I was looking at all the women on the screen, and I was thinking each one of them represents, each of those Nari Shakti, right? I mean, Anupmaji in the field of education, being like that goddess Saraswati, right? And Taraji, like she's a sustainer. She's like, she's out there taking care of so many people beyond her family, taking the time to do so. And Rakhi, like, being out there and fighting for what is the right thing that needs to happen. It's just all coming together so beautifully, that the feminine Shakti, which actually is not feminine at all, if you look at it in a way, because some of you are out there doing the things what we attribute to the masculine energies within us. So you're integrating the two within yourself and doing all of the things that you've been doing. What a wonderful way to bring it all together, Saiji. This is beautiful. I mean, for me, especially, I just learned so much from this panel. I'm sure the audience did as well. And, I'm sure there may be some questions in there, but the panelists may have answered all of those that are top of your minds. If you do have any, they'll be around to answer those. So have them ready, put them in the Q&A window, in the chat window, and we'll be able to get to it. But before we go to that session, as we conclude as a concluding session, we'd like to share a wonderful program that's been put together by Mudra Dance Academy. Mudra Dance Academy is an Indian dance school that engages students in the most ancient and the graceful art forms of India, the Bharatanatyam. It is led by, the Academy is led by Artistic Director Srimati Kshama Shah. She's a student of Padma Bhushan Professor C.V. Chandrasekhar. Shaji has given recitals, presented lecture demonstrations, and received numerous awards for her performance. Our students have performed at the national and international levels. We'll see a small, wonderful recording and embodiment of Archanarishwar from Shaji, Srimati Kshama Shah. Let's get the video. The audio is not clear, please.
Full screen will be better too. We need audio.
We still don't have audio. You have to go to the share screen and then say share sound. Yeah.
Ambodhara Chamada Kuntanayai Tati Prabhatamra Jatadharaya Giriswarayai Nikideswaraya Giriswarayai Nikideswaraya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Ambodhara Chamala Kuntanayai Tati Prabhatamra Jatadharaya Giriswarayai Nikhileswaraya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya. Gadi gadi sadi ga sadi ga. Gadi gadi sadi ga sadi ga. Sapa ga pa ni pa gadi sadi ga. Gadi sadi ga sadi ga. Sapa ga pa ni pa gadi sadi ga. Pa ni sadi sadi ga pa gadi sadi sadi pa ga sani pa gadi sadi ga pa gadi ga pa ni pa ga pa ni sani. Mandaramala Kalitalakayi Kapalamala Gita Kantaraya Mandaramala Kalitalakayi Kapalamala Gita Kantaraya Divyambaraya Digambaraya Divyambaraya Digambaraya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Mandaramala Kalitalakayi Kapalamala Gita Kantaraya Divyambaraya Digambaraya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya. Pasani da pa pa ma ga ga ma jadu ta di ki da 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 jadu ta ga da ma pasani da pa pa ma ga ga ma jadu ta di ki da da jadu ta ga da ma da pa sa ga ri sa sa ma ga ri sa ni da pa janu ta ga di mi ta ga di mi ta ga ma ga di ta di ta di gi na ta di gi na ta di gi na Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Sagama Pama Gama Pani Sani Pama Pani Sani Pama Sagama Pani Sani
Takita jum takita junu tajum takita takadimi takatam
Saga Sani Gatsani Kisani Pasani Pa Pani Sani Saga
takadimi jum junu dimi jum dimi kita jum ta di gi na tum ta di gi na 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 ta 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 di gi na ta di gi na ta di gi na ta 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 tu ta di gi na ta ta tu ta di gi na ta ta tu ta di gi na ta
Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah
We could have watched it for a little longer. It was so beautiful. What a wonderful representation of the Shiva and the Shakti forms. Unfortunately, we'll have to watch a more longer program at a later time. But I believe that we have some questions, and to help with our Q&A and to bring some of those questions to to share it with all of us is our amazing Shobhaji. I'll say a few words about Shobhaji. It'll still not do justice to some of the work that she does. Is amazing. Shobhaji was the cardiology services manager at the Atrium Medical Center in Middletown, Ohio. She's actively involved in her local community to uplift others. She's also the National Hindu Women's Network core team member and also a member of the Hindu Women's Network local team in Cincinnati. She's monitoring the chat box and doing a whole lot of other things as well, but she'll share some of the questions that may have been out there with the audience. Shobhaji, are there any questions? You may be on mute because I can't hear you.
Yes. Thank you, Mahaji. Yes, we have a lot of questions. We have also many beautiful positive comments like amazing, powerful panel discussion, very inspiring, very interesting concept, good discussion, amazing performance. So many positive comments. So the question that Vishakhaji has put down, she says that what challenges have you faced keeping the values of our Sanatan Dharma continue in your children and youth in your circle, especially in the high school?
Any one of the panelists want to volunteer and take that one, or I could pick one?
Yeah.
Yes,
I can get started. So Vishakaji, thank you for asking the question. I was born and raised in a Hindu family, and I'm just kind of reflecting back on on my childhood time. And I always thought I was religious, but what I used to do was every time there was a puja, I would go and, join hands, and I would take the prasad, and we would dress up, and didn't really at that time give as much thought to the deeper values in religion and reflection. There's some things that you just absorb, just being raised in a Hindu family, you just absorb them, and it's a way of life, and you move forward with it. But really, it's a religion that's over 5,000 years old. It's got traditions, it's got value systems, it's got these symbolisms. We didn't always understand those or even reflect on those or think on those. And the more I think about it, the more I'm fascinated by the religion. It's even now, and I'm only scratching the surface, to be very honest. And so to think about what we take back to our children, when I talk to my children about the Hindu religion, and my children are born in a mixed religion and a mixed family, there's much more deeper discussions about symbolisms, about the meanings, about the values they represent. Just Archanarishwar, for example, this concept of the blending of diverse forms and unity in these duality, it's so powerful. It's something that the modern world today is grappling with and understanding and recognizing. Well, it's been there for thousands of years. And so again, just it's not a direct answer to your question, but really what we take back is a deeper understanding, and what I do with my family and with my children is have discussions that go beyond the surface into the meanings of that. Because the more open you are in your discussions, the more you will absorb these newer concepts and move forward in life. Just keeping your minds open and understanding your religion and your values in a deeper way is important.
Because the answers are there, right? That's true.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Anupamaji. Actually, Nilimaji Tandon says that's so true, Anupamaji. Still trying to unlearn the demotivating feedback our teachers would sometimes give us back in school. So I think there are sometimes, we have been exposed or came across some of the comments, negative comments or something that also influence us. And it's not that easy to get out of this, the limited mindset that we sometimes get exposed to. I really enjoyed, I myself enjoyed it so much. You all have done such a wonderful job eloquently explaining the symbol of the, Shiva and Shakti and Archanarishwar. So I do have one question that, so we have, so 40 years ago, I'll just give you one example that the true concept of Archanarishwar sometimes are not appreciated because there are some myths. What are those myths prevailing in the Indian society that bring about the inequality? So for example, 40 years ago when my mom felt uncomfortable watching my husband doing the dishes because she strongly felt that it was a man's job. So in your opinion, what are these myths that is still prevailing in the Indian society currently?
Who wants to take this one?
Who wants
Saiji, Taraji, I don't know, or Rakhi?
Shobhaji, I lost last 30 seconds of your thing. I think I had a fluctuating internet. Can you last part of your question? I understood the example.
Right, examples. So what are the myths that are prevailing in the Indian society that is bringing about this inequality?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I'll take a shot at it. And I think maybe Rakhi and Taraji, being even the generation who has seen both sides of the story, I think maybe able to shed more light on it, as I think Taraji kind of alluded in one of her responses. It's unfortunate that yes, we have seen that kind of stereotyping, or maybe specification of this is what we should be doing if you are born in a certain type of gender. But I think we are progressing in right direction, I would say. What has happened in the past, we can go into the history. We can start from the Vedic times where we had Gargi and Maitreyi contributing to the knowledge, and then we had Kaikeyi, who fought along with Dashrath the war. Right, we have right. So much problem in women in army, women in war in general. And then we had Kunti, who chose to go to Vanavasa and give up her material life with her kids. And even after the war was won, she went with her, with Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. She didn't have to, but she took that as her duty. So we have had such examples throughout the history. And it's very unfortunate that as we passed through the time, with our own understanding about dharma deteriorating and the invasions and whatnot. I mean, we can't blame everything on invasion, but we did move away from that concept. And then these kind of things started coming in, that women themselves thinking, hey, how are you being in the kitchen and that's not your job? And I think we have moved, we are moving away from that, fortunately. And that's because you see that women are breaking that stereotype, making sure that they do everything else also equally powerfully. And at the same time, as I said, the men can be great nurturers. So again, the idea is trying to understand that we both can do both jobs, right, irrespective of what gender we are born into. I think more than anybody else, if we don't understand it as Hindus, it will be really ironic. And that's why I think we need to go around educating everybody if they don't, and living by example. I think we live that in our own household. If we live by example, I think we will kind of face this challenge head on. I'm sorry, I think I took a little bit more time.
Right. Thank you, Saiji. You are absolutely right. I think this kind of workshops and seminars can also help, to elevate those, I mean, at least bring myths in front and then elevate them hopefully. So I think the next, Mahaji.
Sorry, Rakiji, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, especially someone who was born and brought up in this country. I grew up in Houston, Texas. You see as you get to college and you have to kind of rely on your own foundation, I think that you start to realize how important, or at least I did, that you realize how important our whole Hindu philosophy is, and kind of keeping us a little bit more grounded in reality, especially when you have so much noise. And I'll just take a second. Like, I just want to answer the previous question and then tie it into the answer to this question as to what the challenges have been. Having grown up and having seen a lot of my friends that go different paths when they get to college, we've made it very clear to our kids that you can do tennis and soccer and whatever else, but our own Hindu philosophy, like, they go to Chinmaya Mission, Balvihar, they have for many years. We attend Shaka every single weekend. And we've made it very clear to them, that's non-negotiable. You can stop tennis, you can do it, but this is non-negotiable because these are the fundamentals for your later life. And I think the biggest challenge that we are finding, my husband and I, is social media, right? Because social media is so much noise, and especially about our Hindu culture. Now, what are the myths that we see? Like, it's this idea, my daughter recently came to me and she was telling me what she'd heard about the Hindu dharma, that it's backwards, that we're, behind the times, that we're a very, elementary kind of philosophy. And yet we're, like, I think Saiji mentioned, that we're so progressive as a philosophy. Every other religion has either a male or a female as their head. Ours is, the whole topic of this discussion, that within our gods, you have both, right? I mean, the idea that our thing has lasted for 5,000 years and it can evolve is super powerful. And I think that's the one thing that we have to explain to our kids, is that I think we're way ahead of the times in terms of where we are today. All the discussions in social justice, our Hindu dharma has already addressed that, which is something that our kids need to understand. So
yes, very well said. Okay, Mahaji, I think we'll go ahead and go with our the last segment of the thank you note. Mahaji, you want to introduce Yashti?
Of course, yeah. First, I want to thank all the panelists and our audience for being such an engaging audience as well. And thank you for spending your Sunday evening with us. We know how precious it is, but this is such an important topic, and to remind ourselves that our scriptures are there for a reason, their symbols are there for a reason. And the fact that we sometimes forget it. And it's so heartwarming to hear all of the concluding, conversation, especially in the answers to the questions. It's so powerful to know that the answers are there. We just need to go find it. That's all. Times are changing, and along with it comes a lot of resistance for change. But no, we're going to stay steady, and we're going to continue to make that change. So now I'd like to actually invite Yashji to provide the note of thanks. I want to take this moment to also thank Yashji and the rest of the Hindu Women's Network for organizing this very thoughtful event on the occasion of International Women's Day, and an opportunity for me to participate in it. Now, Yashji, or Yashaswini Desai, is a senior IT professional in the Fortune 500 company based in Chicago. She's very active in the local community for over 25 years. As with the rest of the panelists, and contributing her time to various nonprofits such as Ekal Vidyalaya, Seva International, Hindu Women's Network, and HSS. Yashi, over to you to bring this to a close.
Wow, so much we have learned from this awesome session. Great appreciation to our keynote speaker, Dr. Saiji Patil of HSS USA. Excellent panelist, Rakhiji Israni, Dr. Anupamaji Prakash, Dr. Tara Sagar, and Mahalakshmi Pulaji as the moderator for great inspiration. Many thanks to National Hindu Women's Network core team for all efforts, even Mudra Dance Academy from Chicago. Above all, sincere thanks to all of you for your time and attention, active participation, and encouragement. Please join us for more information about Hindu Women Network. Please check the web. www.hwnusa.org/index.html. Contact us at Hindu Women Network sinc@gmail.com. After this session, we will be also providing the link, the YouTube link and Facebook session. We'll also put it here. And if you have registered, we will send you all the details. With that, I would love to lead this Shanti Mantra. We are wishing every one of you all the best here. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, everyone. Thanks again. Back to you, Mahaji.
I think we're concluding the event now. Thank you so much. Hari Om.